And joining me now is a former Secret Service agent who served under President Bill Clinton, a 9/11 survivor, and a cybersecurity and counter-terrorism expert, Matthew Ferrante. Welcome to the show, Mr. Ferrante. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You bet. The presence of these drones now raising alarms about safety and national security risk. You heard the other guests we had on tonight. What's your take on this?
My take on this is that essentially this is complacency at its best. In the Secret Service, we'd say complacency kills, and it is a big risk. We basically shows that we don't have control of our airspace. We don't know what's up there, and there is a risk to these devices being up there. So that would be my take on it. If the government is telling the truth that they don't know what these things are, then yes, it's a risk. It shouldn't be up there.
Well, then the question becomes, what would the federal government do in this case? If the federal government does not know and they're not doing anything about it, then at the very least they are severely negligent in their duties. And if they do know and they're keeping it quiet, they're not at least telling us, look, we have some idea about this, we have it under control, we can't tell you about it, then they're not being honest and forthright with the public, a public that's spending $800 billion a year on the military. So really, what is it that they should be doing right now? Would it be normal for them to at least come forward and say, we know what this is and you have nothing to worry about? Or is that just not on the page for them?
To a point, they may be having an ongoing investigation. They may have identified some sources of the operators of the drone, and they're expanding their investigation to make sure they get all the potential threat actors identified. That's one thing that they could be doing. Or essentially they don't know what's going on. But initially when I heard the reporting, I thought that these were just smaller drones, and I know that there's going to be advancement in technology in the drones. The government should have seen this coming. Our local government should see this coming, and state government should see that this was coming. The advancements that you see in drone technologies and computers, and by the way, drones are flying computers. That's what they are. They have circuit boards, they're transmitting, they're receiving, they're gathering data. They work much in the same way. Computers can be used for good, or they can actually be used for destruction. And we see the same destruction going on in Ukraine. Not to say that this is being used for the same way in Ukraine, but it appears that there's some type of surveillance capabilities that these things are running on the environment.
So in terms of national security, at what point does the federal government have to step in and supersede the state at this point? Are we already beyond that point? Is it up to the state to first go to the federal government and say, hey, we need your help? Or can the federal government just say, hey, FAA is involved here. This is our call. And if so, why are they not doing that?
Well, I respectfully, I don't think that's the appropriate way to do it. I think the collaboration of local, state, and federal authorities is the best way to do it through a collaborative effort. With that said, one of the things that I think Americans, and me as American obviously, is tired of is fix on failure. Like I said, they should have foreseen these threats as oncoming, and they should have mitigated these beforehand. Now that these things are here and it's present, then they're going to have to work collaboratively to fix these different issues and identify them, which I am a little bit perplexed to say the least, to understand why they haven't been able to identify these drones. It's a little bit frustrating, to say the least, why they wouldn't be able to do that.
Well, you heard Congressman Van Drew earlier say that he has it on authority, that a good authority, that this is something from the Iranian government. And if that happens to be the case, and this is Iran flying drones from some point at international waters to the east and flying them in, which, by the way, that makes me wonder, because I thought drones have maybe 45 minutes to an hour of flight time. So they'd have to be pretty close to the shore to be launched right from our shore in order to come into this point and then fly back out and not collapse somewhere. But if that is the case, then who is really responsible for dropping the ball?
Well, a few things. I mean, I just want to comment on the fact that they're blaming this on Iran. Maybe it is Iran. My understanding of Iran is that they're a regional power. The sophistication of the drones, I think, is one thing to look at. I like to look at evidence before I can actually say, oh, this is clearly a signature of Iran. I don't know what the motivating factor of Iran would be specifically, other than potentially terrorism or to cause some level of chaos. But I think just blaming it on Iran, I wouldn't go outright and say that. In terms of, what was the second part of your question, sir?
Well, who would be responsible for dropping the ball if it turns out this is Iran and we've had more than a week of this happening and nothing's being done?
Well, that's going to be the military, the U.S. federal government, and it goes all the way up to our commander in chief. You have to remember something. When you work in government, which I have, you are a public servant. You're there to serve the public. And they have to have accountability across the board. It's not about pointing the finger or passing the buck. You have to take individual responsibility and accountability for the actions. And that's at all levels. And I think Americans are tired of people passing the buck to others. There has to be accountability, including at the highest levels of government.
Well, if this is something that's emanating from within the borders, a lot of this could come back to the borders, because we've had an open border now, as we know, for 3¾ years with no idea of who might be crossing. We had 20 to 30,000 Chinese nationals alone who've come across, tens of thousands of people from all over the world in both friendly and unfriendly countries. Has our government just simply dropped the ball when it comes to protecting us? I mean, that is the primary goal. The reason why 13 colonies joined together and formed a federal union was to protect this country, right? To ensure domestic tranquility and have a common defense, to harken back. Did they totally forget that?
I don't think they forgot it. I think people go into government for good reasons, for great reasons, to protect the people and to do good. With that said, I think that bureaucracy is one of the issues going on when you've been in government for a long period of time, 20, 30 years, maybe you become complacent, like I said at the beginning of this. But do I think they dropped the ball? Yes. The advancements in technology, based on Moore's law, doubles every 2 years. We see AI. By the way, the drones, we got AI integration, facial recognition. We have large language models to integrate databases. So when you're talking about people coming over the border, and I have family members who work on the border, I have friends in law enforcement who work on the border. They raised these concerns a long time ago. So,
and I'm sure I only have to. We're running out of time, so I got to jump in. But I'm sure they must be infuriated by not being able to do their full job in the last 3¾ years. Matthew Ferrante, former Secret Service. We thank you so much for joining us tonight, and I'm sure we will be talking to you again in the near future on this. Much appreciated.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Thank you.